Hi, I'm Kim Goyette, owner of Meditation Mutha, and you are watching P3 on Rise Above TV.
Thank you for tuning in to Rise Above TV, where we are empowering humanity and supporting unity. You're watching P3, the place where we feature individuals who have tapped into their power, passion, and purpose. I'm your host, Janie Terrazas, and today I am super thrilled and excited to have the lovely Kim Goyette. She is the owner of Meditation Mutha, and she's just an all-around badass woman. Thank you so much for being with us today, Kim.
Thank you so much, Janie, for having me. I'm really excited to be here with you today.
I want to make note really quick. You're sitting in front of the Go Love Now logo.
Yes.
I met her through her awesome husband, Scott Goyette, who is the founder of Go Love Now, which is a really great organization that helps children and teachers and parents learn more about what it means to live mindfully and about resilience and self-care. And I know that you two are very much living by those principles, and you guys have a daughter. So I'm interested, later we'll touch a little bit on how to really parent mindfully, because I think that there's a lot of different ways in which we experience stress in our lives, and parenting, relationships, juggling, taking care of yourself and your business and all that. So I'm interested to see what kind of self-care practices you use to stay centered in your P3, and how you're encouraging your young daughter to already start acknowledging her own power, passion, and purpose. So where in the world would you like to start? Because you were in the corporate world, and then you finally, stepped out of your comfort zone and followed your passion. So wherever you would like to start with your story or these words, feel free to do so.
Yeah, thank you so much, Janie. Yeah, I think I am 40, almost 48. Next month, I'll be 48. And right around when I was 40, I was feeling the pressure of corporate America, unbearable. It was really intense, and I wasn't feeling myself at all. I knew who I was, and I had strayed so far from that person. And I kept thinking to myself right before I turned 40, something's got to change. Something's got to change. And lo and behold, the universe really ended up kind of shooting me out of corporate America because the money was so good and I was really nervous to leave that financial stability. But ultimately, it propelled me because I wasn't listening. You know how that happens, right? You keep getting messages, and when you don't listen to them, bam, you get smacked in the face. And that's exactly what happened. So I decided to take a leap of faith, and I had been in corporate America for almost 20 years. And I thought about just pausing for a moment. So I took 3 months off to really sit with myself and think, what do I want to become? And I started to think, what's important to me? And I can assure you that it was so nerve-wracking, because that income that I had, where I was making more money than I could ever imagine, totally stopped. And so a lot of fear started coming up in me. But then I was like, well, this is my time to really create whatever it is that I want to be. So I thought, time is of the essence for me. Time is money for me. I had a kindergartner at the time, and I wanted to spend quality, purposeful time with her. And so I thought, I don't want to get myself in another trap. I could have easily jumped to another corporate opportunity. And so I thought I would pause and really sit on it. And then, of course, I wanted to get the most bang for my buck. I wanted to work less. So ultimately, I was able to create a business, or two businesses, really. One was a sales consulting business, and where I only work part-time and I get a lot of bang for my buck. And then the other is this yoga business, Meditation Mutha, where I help people blossom in all different ways when it comes to yoga, meditation, and all that good stuff.
You have to check out her logo. That's one of my favorite things, because it's all groovy looking. So how did you come up with that?
Yeah, I just wanted to provide a fun logo that would give the perception that anybody can do yoga. It's not just for bendy, flexy people. It's for anybody, any size, anywhere, any shape, any culture. It doesn't matter. It's for everybody. And so I just wanted to make it fun and endearing to people.
I love it. Not everybody has the courage to really lean into their fears and face those fears and forge through. What would you say were your biggest tools for you to help you get comfortable with the uncomfortable?
Yes. Yeah, it's a great point. So, through my lifespan, I have come head to head with fear a million times over. And the thing that works best for me is to recognize that I'm horrified and then just walk towards it and just go through the veil. Because what happens is, my transition from corporate America to yoga and my passions of, what I love to do and how I love to help people, that veil was sitting in front of me, and it's called the unknown, which everyone is scared of, right? And so I said, screw it, I'm just going to leap right through there. And so I jumped. And when I did, I could not believe what was on the other side. It was so much more gratifying. My lifestyle was so much more satisfying, and my happiness level shot through the roof. And so I encourage people that it's just literally taking a leap of faith and jumping through the veil towards whatever you're scared of, because on the other side, it's magnificent.
And I love that you said, that taking the leap of faith. A lot of times we want to have a lot of assurances and a lot of certainty and things in place before we take the leap. But funny enough, it's not until you take the leap that all those things show up. And when you see that happen enough times, you start to build the courage to do it again and again. And so it's almost like you build resilience fibers and grit from the inside, which is super awesome. I do think it's also really cool that you started doing yoga as a way to help yourself balance your own self out. At what point did it become more than just like a passion? And well, actually, it was more of a healthcare probably thing that you were doing, right? Like a wellness thing. And then it turned into a passion of yours that led to work, or how did that happen for you?
Yeah. So back when I was in corporate America, I was so stressed out, and I was not a yogi, believe me. I love to exercise, but that wasn't one of my things. And I was so shot by that time. I was like, I need to go take a yoga class. I'll just go check it out. And I was laying in the final resting pose, Shavasana, which is a relaxation pose. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I feel so good right now. I need to share this with other people. And so I went home to my husband, Scott, and I said, hey, I want to get my 200-hour training. And so I went and did that. And then as I went through the training, it taught me so much more than I had expected. It really opened my mind to all the possibilities and all the endlessly interesting things that yoga has to offer, not just striking poses and looking pretty and all that stuff. It's all the deep work, the energetic work that I really connected with. And so from there, I started feeling the need to gather, in particular at the time, women together, because there's such a separation right now. They're working women with mothers. They're all so busy getting, caught up in their daily activities, and they're really actually looking for tribal connection. And that's where I connected with you, Janie, at one of the first women's retreats that you went to.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I wanted. I wanted to mention that. I was going to say you have a gift to hold space, create safe space for a wide variety of personalities, but you also are there to the empowerment and the inspiration that you're able to create, and the lovely rituals that you combine with your yoga and everything. It's just a combination. It's the healthy food. It's all of it. So yes, I went to one of her retreats, and I went with a couple of friends, and all of us just had a fabulous time. And just all the little exercises that we did together. I still have that sun that we made. It was like cut out, and then everybody got to write a word on it, like, oh, how do you see this person? Which is really interesting, because how we see ourselves isn't always how other people see us. And so I just want to honor you greatly for all of the women that you've helped. And I know that the things that they learn and take away from that retreat are things that they implement in their lives, and then other people get to see that too, so it's like you're planting seeds.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, speaking of power, purpose, and passion, my passion is to hold space for groups so that they can explore and really unravel and grow. And so I absolutely love, it's one of my favorites is the women's retreats that we hold twice per year. And it's a time for people to come together and to let down their hair and to just be themselves, to explore, to connect with other women, to really nurture themselves. And I love, that's my favorite thing is holding space. So yeah.
It's what you were born to do, really, you know. It's creating space where people can feel safe to really be themselves, just breathe and be vulnerable, you know, because that's another word that I think is really important for all of us to understand more deeply. And that's a lot of things. You've done a lot of work on yourself. When did your personal growth work start? Because I know you were in the corporate world and then you shifted in and into this other line of work.
Yeah.
But where did your curiosity kind of start? And where do you feel you are in terms of your power? Like, where do you get your power from?
Yeah. So I, I am not religious based at all, but I do tap into different practices, and I studied Buddhism for a little while. And what I love about learning about other religions and spiritual practices is that you get to choose whatever feels good for you and to be able to create your own. So your spiritual practice is very personal, and that's how I've developed my own practice. So I've taken bits and pieces from multiple places. I grew up Jewish, my husband's Catholic, we look into Buddhism, and we celebrate every holiday in our house, but my spiritual practice is my own. It has nothing to do with any alignment to one thing. And so what I absolutely love to do is when I'm feeling very frantic and loopy in my brain, I love to get outdoors and connect with nature. It's my holy place. That's where my church is outdoors. And so you'll find me in my backyard barefoot, like, digging in the dirt, rolling around and, having a good time and just getting grounded. And so I think I started noticing that type of ritual grounded me in my early 30s when I was pregnant. And, feeling all the emotions of pregnancy and also all the fears of pregnancy. And that's just really noticing when I got outdoors that was my safe place where I felt really secure and connected with the universe. So I would say that was the start of my launch in growth. I was a little late, a little bit later than others, but I focused and I started implementing a lot of different practices to really help tune in my practice and my spiritual goals. So
yeah, and I think that's another thing. It's honorable that you do the personal growth work and the self-care work that you do on yourself, because when one is holding space and creating space for healing and uniting people, it's really important for that person to be balanced. And Kim is one of those people that's a perfect balance of sort of like the air and the earth, it's the water and the fire. She's got all the elements and she gets it.
Thank you. Thanks, Jeannie. I appreciate
it. So obviously helping women, yoga, nature, these are things that you're passionate about. What's something else that you feel is your passion that you really feel you need to tap into every once in a while to feel aliveness?
Yeah. So I really love to be able to connect one-on-one with people. That's one of my favorite things. So I teach a lot of private yoga classes. Meditation Mutha is not a studio. So I teach private yoga, corporate yoga, and then yoga retreats. But the one-on-ones are so amazing because you get to tap into the individual and give them exactly what they need based on day to day, minute to minute, and every day is different. So I love to be able, it stretches my brain a little bit to be able to have someone come to me and say, oh, I'm feeling really sluggish today and a little down, and my left leg is bothering me. And then I just weave the whole practice around supporting whatever it is that they need. And then, just noticing the difference from when they walked in to when they leave just really lights me up. So I love that.
I love that. And it's not like cookie cutter, because every person is like a snowflake. That's, our fingerprints. Yes, we're all human beings, but we each have our own little signature fingerprint. signature essence. And so how you treat one person is not always how you're going to treat another, even with the same element, because you're really tapping into that emotional, mental stress too, not just the body. And it's great that you understand all the body mechanics though too, because then you're really able to help them in a more holistic way when you're assisting them and working with them one-on-one. So that's really, really cool. Going back to your daughter, so with everything that went on with the pandemic and them working out, basically going to school at home, they're being homeschooled and all this stuff happening. How did you find it was best for you guys to help her find her groundedness and balance in all the craziness that's going on in the world?
Yeah, so Kayla, our daughter, she's 14 and she's in 8th grade. And at the, second half of 7th grade, all the stuff, happened. And we were home and she's been home since. She hasn't gone physically back to school. It's all been virtual. So I have found, I am a big proponent of staying safe, wearing masks, washing hands, and so on. But with this age, this teenage age, it is so incredibly important to have peer support and peer interaction for good mental health. I feel extremely sad for these kids that are being isolated 24/7 with no real interaction and really missing their friends and quality time with their friends. So we made a big effort, Scott and I, throughout this whole pandemic to make sure, even through school, that she had at least one friend over, to spend a school day with, or maybe do something after school and really connect in that way, because otherwise the mental health, falls. And mental health is as equal, if not more important than physical health, especially in that age. So yeah. We made a big effort for connection.
Is there anything about her that you're noticing is similar to you that you're like, oh, I love that she's like that?
So that's a really great question. So, I'm into yoga and she calls it all the woo-woo stuff, whatever that might be, meditation, breathing, whatever it is. So very subtly, she's the kind of girl, if I say, do this, she'll never be interested in it. So very subtly over the years, I've introduced, just if she's frantic, close your eyes and just breathe a little bit, but very subtly. It can't be formal. I can't call it meditation, none of that junk to her, right? So over time, every once in a while, I'll get feedback where she's, I'll say something like, if you want it, you can visualize it. If you visualize it, it'll manifest, like over and over again. So one day she was like, Mommy, I visualized getting a puppy, and she had this whole scenario laid out of how it was going to happen. And because of her mental strength, it manifested exactly the way that she wanted it. And she's like, okay, I'm a believer.
It's funny that you say that though, because, we end up having this visceral, experiential, like personal experiences. Yeah. And when you start having more of those, you really can start to build your faith in the reality that we do create our reality. Words and our thoughts are really, really powerful. When you have a tough day, what's sort of like your thing? I know nature's really big for you. Is there anything else that you do for yourself when maybe, because you are very intuitive and a very empathic person, and those of us that are deep feelers, we feel like it's like a pendulum. We can feel amazing ecstasy and pleasure and grace for no reason, just like we're just elated to be alive. And then other times we're just like, oh, you just feel the pain and suffering of the world. Mm-hmm. Do you ever have experiences like that? And if so, how do you mindfully manage, them?
Yeah, that's a great question. So last year around this time, right after the new year, there was something going on. I don't know if I was predicting what was coming in 2020. I have no idea, but I could hardly move. I was so unmotivated, and that's not like myself. And I just was extremely sluggish and bummed out, really. I mean, and I had a really hard time getting out of it. So this year, in preparation for knowing, all the celebrations are over and you have to start fresh in the new year and you're expected to just get up and go, I prepped myself ahead of time so that I could, ease into it with a little bit easier transition. And so I started a cleanse it's a 21-day cleanse to help just get all the holiday junk out of me. And I feel amazing on it. It's challenging. I'm still in the middle of it right now, but it's making me so much lighter mentally, physically, everything. And then I started and joined on, I don't know if you're familiar with Insight Timer. It's a meditation app. And yeah, it's a great resource. It's free. And they have a 31-day meditation challenge. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to make sure that I stay on point with my meditation. It's just 10 minutes a day. So I've been doing that. And that's really helped me set my intention for the morning and get myself going for a great day. And then I've just been really conscious about exercising and staying healthy and nourishing myself in a lot of different ways, taking baths, relaxing, laughing, all those things that help me get out of a funk. And I'm doing them proactively. So now I'm feeling really energized and hopeful for 2021.
Yes, I know. A lot of us, we're happy that 2020 was behind us, but I know there were a lot of big lessons. What would you say were like one or two big takeaways for you coming out of this 2020 year? I know we're all still going through it and everything, but really, what was like the biggest lesson, do you think, for you?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, there were so many lessons. It was like a mega growth year. Absolutely. But
from it.
Yeah, one of the things that I actually liked about 2020 was that I call it the great pause of 2020 because it just stopped everyone in their tracks, all the crazy, frantic busyness, the unnecessary movement that we needed to do, that we thought we needed to do, and it took all that away. And then it made you realize, well, what's real? What's important? And what's important is family, connection, health, quality time. And so it forced us to really be present with each other. I mean, all we had was each other for a little while when everyone was kind of hiding out, and just really nice quality time where we could slow down and realize that there's a lot of extraneous activities that don't really need to be done. So I love that. Right behind our house is a green space, and normally there's no one on the trail. But since this whole pandemic, I see people hiking, walking, riding their bikes with their families. And I just love seeing people out and about in that way, just really experiencing quality time and knowing what's important.
I love that. Yeah, it was time for us to reprioritize our priorities. And we needed the big, great pause of 2020 to do that.
Yes. And that's another slap in the face. We weren't learning. We weren't hearing messages from the universe. And they said, oh, yeah, we're going to bring a pandemic and slow you down.
It's going to happen one way or the other. That's why I love the idea of really understanding the concept of surrender, and acceptance and allowing and going with the flow and doing our best not to always resist that which shows up and trying to rise above it, and finding the silver lining. And I know you're definitely one of those people that has that optimistic way of looking at things. It doesn't mean you're ignoring what's happening, but you're like, well, how do we make the best of this?
Right.
And that's ultimately, can you imagine if all of us sort of had that attitude? Let's touch on purpose. So obviously everything you've already discussed is aligning your purpose, but is there anything that you would like to mention about the word purpose?
So I read a book and it's called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Have you ever read it?
Oh my God. I have only read excerpts of it. I've seen documentaries and I've watched a lot of videos and things like that about him, and he's fantastic. He's the guy that was in the Holocaust, right?
Exactly. He was in Auschwitz. So I'm obsessed with historical fiction, especially that era. And so I've read a million books on it. But when I read that book, it was so interesting because he was talking about real life stories in Auschwitz when he was there, and the difference between people surviving, dying, and thriving. And so he said the biggest thing is knowing what your purpose is, and it could be anything. So some people had a purpose of just getting out of there so that they could see a family member. Some people wanted to write a book. So whatever it was, you need to focus on a purpose, but the purpose has to be centered around your passion. So if you're not passionate about what you do, then you need to change what you do, because that's what's going to light you up. I absolutely love the quote from Mr. Thurman. He said, "Don't ask what the world needs. Ask what lights you up because the world needs people that have come alive. So I absolutely love that.
So awesome. That's a big
Yeah.
question that I have. It's like, do you think you're alive? Like,
Yeah.
what does that mean to feel alive?
Mhm.
And that would be a great thing to mention. Like, what really like lights you up, Kim?
So Jeannie, I don't know if you know this, but Scott, Kayla, and I, we took a year off back in 2018 and 2019, and we took a trip around the world. That
Yes,
I don't,
I do. I wanted to ask you about that. I wanted to
yeah,
mention that you guys, as a family, made major changes before this COVID. Can you imagine if you would have been doing this while COVID hit? But yeah, you
yeah.
guys went around the world and did this for 12 months. So
Yeah, so exactly. Yeah, we took off in June and we got back in June of 2019, and then COVID hit 6 months later. So I can't even imagine being on the road traveling during that time. We were so lucky. Someone was looking out for us for sure.
yes,
But getting back to purpose and passion that's what lights me up. I love new experiences. I love seeing and visiting different cultures and seeing landscapes and eating different foods that I haven't ever even dreamed exist. It was such a fabulous, everyone thinks, oh, wow, you traveled around the world for a year, but it was one of the most challenging experiences we ever had, one of the most fulfilling experiences we ever had, both equally. And so I loved the fact that we were living moment to moment with no boundaries. When we rented our house for a year, and so we had no home. We were true vagabonders, and I love the lightness of that. All we had was a backpack on our back and a little carry-on, and that was all our belongings for a whole year. And so the freedom that comes with that, and then the ability just to go anywhere, do anything, try anything, was so uplifting and like I said, freeing. It was just a beautiful experience. So I would say that travel, freedom, flow, all those things, anything that's wrapped around those three things is what lights me up.
it's almost like all that a family would go through, going through that type of traveling, prepped you for all the pressures and the stressors and stuff that families were facing inside of their home. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, this is nothing compared to trying to travel to different places.
So that's exactly it. So Kayla's an only child, and it was the three of us all the time, 24/7, sometimes in small spaces. And we didn't have access to things sometimes. So when the pandemic hit, we're like, this is a piece of cake. We got a puppy, we got our own home, we each have our own bed.
It was like
Yeah.
perspective had been expanded through all your travels. And they even say it's really healthy for our brain to go to
Yeah.
different places. And again, that alone can be uncomfortable for people, to be in a foreign place where you don't know the language, you don't know where you're going. But
Right.
in y'all's case, you are adventurers and explorers. And I love that all of you are like that, you and Scott. And he was on season 1, so you guys have to check out his episode. Is there anything that you would like to leave our viewers with as we start to wrap up this episode?
Yeah, I would say, there's fear in all of us. We all face fear. It doesn't matter how brave you look on the outside, fear rises in us all the time. And what I'd love to offer is that you take a deep look at why you're fearful and ask yourself, well, what's the worst thing that can happen if your fear comes true? Because typically it's not so bad. We make up all these stories in our head, blow up and exaggerate what could happen, and really not so bad. And then I invite you to step towards your fear and really not just step towards it, but move through it, because I cannot tell you my happiness level compared to where I was is outstanding. And I know that it could be the same for everyone if you just kind of open up your shirt, see the big super S, and just fly right through it. Yeah. And then you're on the other side, and then you're looking back on what was I so scared of? I mean, and that's a beautiful feeling in itself. So I would say that's the biggest point.
I love it. Well, you left us with so many awesome little words of wisdom and pieces of advice. How can people connect with you? I know that you always put these great videos on your Instagram page and stuff, so please let them know how they can find you in case they're interested in your services or just want to follow you.
Sure. Yeah, I appreciate that, Janie. So you can find me at www.meditationmutha, that's MUTHA.com. That's my website. And there you can find YouTube videos. So I post weekly YouTube videos for yoga, and they're for everybody. So any level of yogi, it doesn't matter. I also have 2 meditations on that app that I talked about, Insight Timer. One is called What Can I Become? And the other one is called Healing Your Ancestral Lineage. So if you're interested in that, those are 2 free meditations. I hold yoga retreats all around the world. So we're having one, cross your fingers, in July in Costa Rica, and then a couple of women's retreats throughout this year. So you can check everything out on that. And then I'm actually in the process of writing a book about our trip around the world, because I wanted to create a resource for people to know that anyone can do it. We are not rich, believe me. We do not have like a pot of gold in our house. We did it on a very, medium income, and anyone can do it, any situation. It doesn't need to be a family. It could be a single, it could be a couple, whatever it is, you can do it too. So that book's hopefully coming out in early summer, and it's called Just Plain Crazy. So PLANE.
What a great play on words. I
Yeah.
love it. I love how playful you are. I highly recommend you guys connect with her. Thank you for all the wonderful work that you do to help humanity, Kim. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Janie. I'm so grateful.
And thank you for tuning in to Rise Above TV, where we are empowering humanity and supporting unity. Your likes, shares, and follows are greatly appreciated because they help spread the love. Subscribe to our YouTube and podcast channels. Be sure to tune in next week for another power-packed episode of Power, Passion, and Purpose.
Till next time, peace be in us.